You pull the lid off a pot of rice. Steam rises into your face, warm and soft, carrying a smell of something your body already trusts before your brain even processes it. You sit down, take a bite of something roasted, something simmered, something that took 20 minutes over a flame to become edible, soft, sweet, safe. This moment, this unremarkable Tuesday dinner, is so ordinary you barely notice it happening. But go back far enough, and this exact moment did not exist. For nearly the entire span of human ancestry, there was no pot, no flame, no steam. There was only raw meat, raw roots, raw leaves, torn apart with bare hands and blunt teeth, swallowed whole because there was no other option. So the question is simple. For millions of years, with brains too small and jaws too weak to survive on raw food alone, how did a skinny, slow, weaponless primate turn fire into the single invention that built the human body as you know it? Here's the part that doesn't make sense until you sit with it. Chewing raw meat is brutal work. A chimpanzee spends nearly half of its waking day just chewing, grinding tough, stringy tissue into something small enough to swallow. Your ancestors, roughly 2 million years ago, did not have the jaw muscles or the massive gut of a chimpanzee. Something had changed in their bodies before it changed in their environment. This is where the anthropologist Richard Wrangham built his cooking hypothesis, an idea that flipped the standard story of human evolution on its head. Wrangham argued that fire didn't just help early humans eat, it rebuilt them from the inside out. Think about that for a second. Your gut is expensive tissue. It burns enormous amounts of energy just existing, digesting, breaking down whatever you put into it. Raw food is dense, fibrous, and stubborn. It takes a huge digestive system working overtime to pull nutrients out of it. But cooked food is different. Heat breaks down cell walls before your stomach ever has to. It denatures proteins, softens starches, and does a huge portion of digestion's hard labor before a single bite touches your tongue. Studies on cooked versus raw sweet potatoes and meat show that cooking can increase the net calories your body actually absorbs by well over 20%. That number sounds small. It is not small. It is the difference between barely surviving and having energy left over. And here's what nobody tells you about that leftover energy. It didn't just go toward bigger muscles or faster legs, it went to the brain. Your brain, right now, burns about 20% of your entire body's energy, despite being about 2% of your body weight. No raw food-eating primate on Earth can afford that kind of expense. Gorillas, with guts built for endless raw foliage, have brains a fraction the size of yours relative to body mass, because almost everything they eat goes straight into digestion, none of it spared for cognition. Somewhere around 1.9 million years ago, in the fossil record of Homo erectus, you see something strange begin to happen. Smaller teeth, a smaller gut, inferred from a narrower rib cage, and a brain that is climbing, steadily, generation after generation. Something had freed up the energy budget. Wrangham's answer, still debated but increasingly hard to dismiss, is fire. But controlling fire is its own nightmare of a problem, and this is where the story gets physical, not just biological. Fire is not something you find sitting neatly in a cave waiting to be used. Wildfire is chaos, lightning strikes, dry grass fires that burn fast and die fast, unpredictable and dangerous. The real challenge was never discovering fire, it was keeping it. Evidence from Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, dated to roughly 1 million years ago, shows burned bone fragments and ashed plant remains deep inside the cave, far from any spot lightning could reach. That means someone carried fire in. That means someone tended it, fed it, protected it from wind and rain for hours, maybe days, without matches, without lighters, with nothing but patience and constant attention. At Gesher Benot Yaakov in Israel, dated to around 790,000 years ago, archaeologists found clustered patches of burned flint and wood in tight, repeated spots, evidence not of a single accidental burn, but of the same fire location being used again and again. Here's the part that hits different once you picture it. Someone in your ancestral line stayed awake at 2 a.m. feeding twigs into embers, because if the fire died, everything the fire made possible died with it. So why go to all that trouble? Because raw food isn't just hard to digest. In some cases, it's dangerous. Wild plants are loaded with natural toxins, evolved specifically to stop animals from eating them. Cassava root, still a staple food across parts of Africa and South America today, contains cyanogenic compounds that can be lethal if eaten raw in large enough quantities. Cooking breaks those compounds down, turning a mild poison into a safe, calorie-rich meal. Your ancestors weren't just cooking for flavor, they were cooking to survive plants that were quite literally trying to kill them. And once a group figures that out, an entire category of food that was previously off limits suddenly becomes edible. That's not a small win, that's an expansion of the entire menu of the natural world. Here's what doesn't make sense until you think about it from a completely different angle. Fire didn't just change what your ancestors could eat, it changed how they slept and who they trusted. Out on the open savanna, in the dark, without walls, without weapons stronger than a sharpened stick, nighttime was when the predators came. Lions, hyenas, saber-toothed cats, all of them apex hunters, all of them capable of killing a human without much effort. A fire at the mouth of a cave or at the center of a camp was a wall made of light. Predators, evolved over millions of years to avoid flame, would not cross it. For the first time, sleep could actually be sleep, deep, extended, restorative sleep, instead of the fragmented, hyper-alert dozing that most prey animals are stuck with for their entire lives. The anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years studying the Juhoansi Bushmen of the Kalahari and found something the modern world had almost forgotten. Daytime conversation among the group was mostly practical, logistics, complaints, small disputes. Nighttime conversation around the fire was different entirely. Stories, myths, jokes, social bonding that daylight hours, filled with the exhausting business of survival, simply didn't have room for. That fire circle might be one of the most underrated inventions in human history. Before fire, your ancestors were mostly silent once the sun went down, hiding, waiting, surviving until morning. After fire, night became a second life, a time for talking, for teaching, for passing down the kind of knowledge that never fossilizes, but somehow still shaped everything that came after. Some researchers now argue this nightly firelight ritual was one of the earliest engines of complex language and shared storytelling, the invisible scaffolding underneath everything you'd later call culture. Now zoom out, because none of this happened by design. No early humans sat down and reasoned their way to fire the way you might plan a recipe. It happened slowly, accidentally, generation after generation, a lightning strike here, a smoldering branch dragged into a cave there, until finally the behavior stuck because the bodies that could exploit it outcompeted the ones that couldn't. There was no neutral outcome, there was only adaptation or disappearance. So here's the rapid-fire truth of it. Raw food starved the brain of energy, and fire freed that energy up. Raw plants poisoned the body, and fire made them safe. Darkness invited predators and silence, and fire pushed both away, buying humans their first real nights of deep sleep and their first real evenings of shared language. 4 separate, brutal problems, and one single, fragile, flickering solution tying them all together. Cooking did not just feed your ancestors, it rebuilt their guts, expanded their brains, secured their nights, and gave them their first fireside stories, the ancestor of every campfire tale, every dinner table conversation, every meal shared with people you love that would ever come after. That's the part worth sitting with the next time steam rises off your plate. You are not just eating dinner. You are running a program written nearly 2 million years ago, back when a small-brained, weak-jawed primate figured out that a flickering orange light could be tamed, fed, and trusting it would change what a human body was even capable of. Somewhere in your evening meal, quietly, invisibly, is the entire reason your brain is large enough to wonder about any of this at all. Your ancestors didn't just discover fire, they bet their entire species on it. And you are living, breathing, thinking proof that the bet paid off.